this frame comes into manageable pieces because there's the cover plates all stacked up on the floor there that just lift off. And then you undo that bolt and that bolt, then this, and take off the bits at the back here, then this piece will lift off, and then out comes a lever, and then you undo the next, and they come off. And so the whole frame, even though it's about 1.5 tons of lever frame, there's only two pieces that are heavier than about 20 kilograms. And that is this piece here that goes from there to there and there to there. So, and it's only 1 inch thick, and it's a frame that actually, yes, so it's 1 inch thick there, and it's got the centre pieces here, so it has got all the centre pieces, and that is about 100 kilos. So yes, so the Midland Railway, so this is 16 lever frame, and it's there. So the Midland Railway lever frames are typically always in multiples of 4 or 8 levers, because they had 8 lever base plates, and they had 4 lever base plates. So, and you saw downstairs they're just floor joists running across here, full length, and it just sits on the floor joist. So literally all that's happened here is cut out a rectangular section from the floorboards. The floorboards run longitudinally, so there's basically 5 floorboards that have just been cut short and missing, and then this sat on top, and then the levers just assembled onto it. Now, this is tumbler interlocking, and tumbler is because of these things here that rock, and they rock as a lever is pulled, and essentially tappet locking is I think the most straightforward and most flexible and most widely used, because it is the best form of interlocking. I think it was it Saxby and Farmer that invented it, took out a really tough patent on it, and so from the 1860s to the 1880s, you had basically 3 choices: buy a Saxby and Farmer frame, pay a Saxby and Farmer a royalty, or invent something completely different of your own. The Midland Railway invented something completely different of their own. So essentially you've got 2 tumblers for each lever, known as the before tumbler and the lock tumbler. So the one on the left is the before tumbler, and that proves that this lever has been pulled before another lever. And the lock tumbler is one that prevents this lever being pulled by another lever. So a simple case here, so number 9 and 10, because all these signals were yellow ground signals, which means that you could go past them at danger while you were shunting in the yard. In order to pull lever number 9, you had to pull number 10 first. So number 9, you can't even squeeze the catch handle. Number 10, you can, and then you can pull that. So I'll do that again so you can see what's happening. So this little bar here has a peg in one of them and a notch, a large gap in the other. So because you can see the notch there, and that means that you can't pull that, because when this tries to, when you pull this one, it's trying to lift this. Lifting this is trying to rotate this. This is trying to push that rod, and that rod is pushing up against that, so you can't do it. When this one pulls, okay, that's the the lock tumbler, that's fine, but the before tumbler only tumbles when the lever is fully pulled, and as that goes there, you can see that sliding in the notch, and now that piece of bar there has a notch that it can move in, and then when I pull that, it can, you see the bar there sliding because there's a notch on that pin. And when I do that, it comes over there. Now that that's there, we've now got that pushing up against that, and there's now not room for this to move back. Okay, so we've got a different amount of slop on the mechanism here, but essentially it won't go there. I can't change the points under the train. So I've then got to put the lever back, signal back to danger, and only when the signal is fully back to danger has it now released that, and that will rock, and then I can then put that one back. So if you imagine that this was at a junction, then what would happen is that having pulled this lever here, it would only go back to there, and the electric lock would hold that, and if it was there, the signal arm has physically gone to danger, but because this hasn't dropped in, it hasn't released that, I still can't change the point under the train. So that's the really simple. So number 4 has a straightforward thing where it releases number 5. So when this gets fully across, this slot has opened up, allowing this bar to move, so then we can pull number 5. There is then a similar arrangement here. There's a slot there, and we can now pull number 6. And 6 has locked both of these there. So this one is preventing this going back, and then because this lever hasn't gone all the way back, we've got prevention there. So we put the signal back, we can put the points back, and those points back. Now this bit here is a sliding box that implements locks both ways. Okay, so we've got 2 locks both ways, number 4 and number 10 locked by number 3. And the reason for that is that it's legitimate to have a freight train coming out here and out, and while that freight train is leaving, the signal number 3 is clear, but you mustn't change the points under the train. But you can't have a simple release on that, because you can also legitimately have a through train coming along here, and so number 3 is clear but number 10 are normal, but you mustn't change the points under the train. So number 3 locks 10 both ways. It locks it reversed and it locks it normal, so you can't change it under the train. Similarly, you could have a down train come to a stand, set back and reverse over here to allow another train to pass, and then eventually it departs, crossing over number 4 and then past number 3. So number 3 can still be pulled with number 4 pulled, but when it's pulled, you mustn't change number 4 underneath the train. So that's implemented with the locks both ways. So that's done with this little sliding box here. And number 4, we've got this coming up here. So we've got that pulls there. When I come across here, it then releases there. And it relies on the fact that, okay, in here there's a bar here with a wedge. There's a double-ended wedge in going across, and a bar here with a wedge attached onto this locking bar. And when essentially what it means is that only one of these 2 bars here can be fully retracted into the box. If this bar is let's pull 3. 3 pulls this one and pulls this wedge into the box. When that's pulled in, We've then got this one here holding that up against the wedge, and this one held up against the wedge, which means that the whole box won't move. And so that's implemented implemented the lock where 3 is preventing 4 from being pulled. If I put 3 back, that has moved back here and slid this out the way, which means that I can now pull number 4. The box will lift up, and when it gets to the full end, the before tumbler has now moved, releasing that, which means I can now pull number 3 because this wedge is coming in, pushing the wedge across there and locked up against there. So I can pull number 3. I now can't put number 4 back because the box has moved up and there's now not enough room for this lock, this before lever to come through. So that means I can't change that. There's the similar arrangement here. The same bar carries on, and I can't change the position of number 10. So put that one back to normal, the signal normal to protect the crossing. I can then put those points back normal, and then over here, because this bar is in, I can then pull number 10. That's gone up there, and once it got into place it slotted in, which means that this bar will then move, which allows number 3 to pull, and number 3 is now back locking number 10, so 3 has locked 10 both ways. So that's locking both ways using these boxes. About sequential locking. And sequential locking means that you can pull number 2 as long as number 3 is at danger. You can then pull number 3, and the reason for that is that if you had a train signalled through, pulled number 2, pulled number 3, and the train went through, and put number 2 back to danger, gave train out of section, accepted another train, but forgot to replace number 3, and that's still showing a clear aspect. Along comes your next train and you pull off for number 2, expecting it to stop in the station, but because you've forgotten to put number 3 back to danger, the train goes through and into a block section that it doesn't have authority to. So the way you do that is to make sure that to pull number 2, number 3 must be normal. And once you've pulled number 2, you can then pull number 3. So that's done with this little box down here. And we've got a tappet. So this is a piece of locking that cannot be done on tumbler locking. So tumbler's great for some things, but it doesn't do sequential. And what we've got is a little slider here going between 2 tappets, and it lifts. So if we watch what happens, we can pull number 2, and that has pushed the dog into that tappet. Number 2, we can then pull number 3, and that has pushed that across. Now you can't do it simply by having 2 releases 3, because one of the principles of running signals is you must be able to put them back to danger at any time. So if we put this one back to danger, if you watch what happens, the dog has lifted and it then falls back into place, and that now means that I've forgotten to put number 3 back to danger, but I cannot pull number 2 again. Put number 3 back to danger, and that has now moved that one to line up with the notch. I can then pull that one. I can pull this one again, but because of that I can put either or both of them back to danger, and it will flick back into place.
Now, thanks to our colleague Ryan, we have this little example here we can show you of some conditional locking. So what we have here is our trays going through, and as you can see here we have what looks like a tappet, a standard tappet, but it isn't. It's actually a rising tappet. Rises up. Just see that there. It's hinged. So if we were, say, to let's push it back down, it's a little stiff. This end, by the way, is a lot larger. You can just make it out there. It rises up quite a lot, so it fixes it in. So if we were to operate in the standard fashion, our rod from the right here, it pushes across the tappet to the left, and we jam the tappet to the left like that. Let's pull it that way, sorry, and do it correctly. So we've pulled that rod and it's pushed the tappet across and it's locked that. That's nicely locked. We'll put our right hand bar back in place. Okay, so we can now pull our left hand bar, no problem there, and it pushes across the tappet into the right. So the sliding tappet goes across into the right. So we can say that 1 locks 2 and 2 locks 1, no problem. Now obviously you might want to be able to put a signal back in a hurry to danger without having to go and put all the levers back first. So if these are signals, let's get this right way round now. So let's say that's the starter, home then starter. You might want to throw this back in an emergency. Now the problem is, if you do that, you've got to put that back first before you can put this back in, and you've gone through 2 steps there, not very quick. So what you can do, get this in the right position. We've pulled that lever there to that position there. You might not notice, but this rod is ramped. If you can just look, you can just see there, it's got a ramp on it. Okay. So if I pull that to that position there, so if I were to now operate this lever, pull it across, it's pushed the sliding tappet across and has locked this in here. However, if I go to put this lever back, because of that ramp, it now pushes and rides over. So the tappet will ride up and over. As you can see, it's just dropped up there and pulls back down. So that's very cleverly put the signal back to danger, but you can't re-pull it again now until you've put everything back into the correct order. Okay, push this again, sorry, pull this again, it locks that. I can push this and drop it back in an emergency. Conditional locking. Now one other thing to note on the conditional locking, because you can see it, just see it here, you can see that there's a fixed stop in this side of the tray down here, and you have the sliding tappet which is hinged off this small rod just there. You see it sits in the bottom, it will come out. Little work of art that, isn't it? Can't even see the hinge. It's been completely filed over. Well, lovely job. Put that back in there. Put its stop back against its mark. Put the rods back in correctly. And there we go, back to the start again.
So what I'm thinking is that if this goes in underneath there, then yes, it is. That will go in there. So I've got to take these bars out to drop it in, and this one will go out that way, and this one I need to take a pin out. I always wear filthy clothes in here. I probably use the swan neck off it and then bolt onto it a length of bar that will go the length. So that will give me my 2 locks, or I need 10 locks 3. So 10 locks 3 is going to be I think there. No, I know what I reckoned I was going to do. I was going to do my 10 locks 3 here, but extending the underneath bit. So if I bolt a piece of metal onto there with a couple of bolts there, I can actually make that reach under there to lock 3. Because if I have it going down there like that, I need to cut a big notch there to clear that pin. But if I have it going down there, I just extend the bar underneath and there's nothing for it to foul. This one is for A or B lock C. It's conditional. So what you might have in that position, this bar is shorter, and if it's in that position, the bar's longer. So if you've got this opposing that, then with this lever in position, it will oppose it. But with this lever in that position, it will not oppose it because it's introducing the slack. So that gives you the ability to have a choice of routes. So that if you've got, say, a junction and a signal approaching the junction, you can be going one way or the other way. Yeah. So 16 has two locks both ways. 15 has a single locks both ways. So that's a 14 with a single lock both ways at the back. 13 has nothing underneath. 12, I can't see what the difference is number 12. But yes, I mean, so basically they're different pattern numbers. The actual stamps for this lever frame, here's your number 10, number 11, number 9, number 10.
Oh, right, I'm stamping.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Number 2, number 5.
So which one's
4.
which? So 1 for 1,
Yeah.
2 for 2.
Yeah. So in fact, when the goods yard closed in the 1960s, levers 7, 8, 9 and 10 became free, and in fact most of these tumblers, not only did they take the locking out, they took the tumblers out as well.
Yeah.
So I got some tumblers from another Midland frame, and I thought, hey, this is great, except for the fact that it was from a much bigger frame, and they had two variants of it. They had a variant that was that big, and a variant that was that big, and 2 extra rows of locking. And when they did that, they also had a different diameter of bar throw.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these that came from Wellington Junction, I had to use an angle grinder and cut off at the back there. But luckily, all the spacings of all the ones that were present were the same. It was just 2 extra ones. And yes, it was a different diameter bolt hole. So yes, a different diameter rod through it.
So looking back at our locking chart here, if we take this example here, we have some counter locking between 12 and 13 on our drawing, and you can just see there it's shown. On our rods, it would be something similar to this. We would have a notch in there which would engage with our bar. So here's what I've done. I've just put an example on there. So our pin is trapped on our bar there, which provides our locking action. You can see this one is actually shaped so we can go underneath. So onto our tumbler on the bottom side. This one actually has a bit of the ability to make itself either longer or slacker, which is the reason for the long groove on some of the rods, because you want to be able to have lost motion on there, so it'll only lock in one position but has lost motion on the other. So if we applied that to there, it would lock there, it won't be free there. However, if we place this over to this direction, it would then be able to lock the other way as well.